with Taylor Moore. Hey, Taylor.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah, morning, afternoon. It's all part of the continuous flow of the day. Taylor, as some of our viewers on Golden Phoenix Publish would note, is the founder of the Best Day Ever movement here in Tucson, South Tucson. And he has some things to share with you about how to live the good life. And the good life has very little to do with money.
Well, it has to do with money. If money is your goal, you're not going to get there.
So basically, Taylor is throwing down the gauntlet here. He's saying, dude, if you're living your life because you want money, you're not going to experience what he calls the best day ever. It just isn't going to happen. Occasionally, you're going to have your excitement because you hit something in the stock market, but it doesn't endure. So how do you know you're having your best day ever?
Well, with me, I guess have to begin at the beginning. When I was in the city of Sunland Park, working with kids, and at the end of the day, a little girl got out of my car just right at dusk, and she opened the door after she had closed it, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Moore, today was my best day ever." And I drove home, on my way home, thinking, I'm an old man at the end of my life.
Why did it take so long?
Yeah. Why can't everybody be why can't every day be my best day ever?
Well, if you had to...
Why did it take so long?
I know.
Why not learn
Well, you've been a lawyer.
at the end of my life? And why did I learn it from a little 9-year-old girl?
Well, you'd had a great career as a lawyer. You were a jet fighter pilot. You worked for the FBI as a stenographer. You went to law school. Great education.
Every one of those things, I thought I had the best job that I could possibly have.
But something was missing still.
Something was missing, and so that began. And I went home and I went to bed, and as you're reviewing your day, it was a great day for me. You have you have this feeling of glow. There's no better way to explain it than glow. That's
You mean you'd never experienced at the end of the day, after trying a difficult case, maybe winning the case, you didn't go and lie down in bed and feel like, wow, I'm rapturous.
You bet. I felt good. I can remember way back when I learned something special, when I learned how to ride a bike. I especially remember the day I soloed the T6. Those days I felt really, really good.
Yeah, but what I'm noticing about that is all those things you challenged yourself a little bit.
You bet.
You pushed the envelope a little bit.
The envelope.
And that's what contributed. Is that a factor here?
Well, yeah, but so anyway, that day raised the question, what do you need to do to go home with that very special feeling at night? What do you have to do to get there at the end of the day? You can't buy it. You can't buy it. You gotta live it. You gotta make it happen. So that began a work that continues to this day. We're working on how do you have the best day ever? What are the things that you can do to make your day even better?
You know what I'm getting? I'm getting that you had some really good days in your life, and you went to bed with a glow, but you didn't know what it was, and you didn't know why you had it. But something about that little girl sparked an insight into this phenomena that made it something you were aware of, and then you gave it a phrase, a name. You called it Best Day Ever.
This was my passion at the end of my life, to try to have as many of those days as I could possibly have.
And that began a quest to figure out what the heck makes a best day ever possible.
Okay, where do you begin? You begin with the hand that God dealt with you, that God dealt to you. And the hand that God dealt to everybody is we have 24 hours a day. We're going to eat 3 meals a day. We're going to sleep 8 hours a day, approximately. And so if you begin your day with the meal and the mindset that I want this to be my best special day, then for the rest of your life, you can think about every meal you have can be special. If you're paying attention to what you eat, where it came from, how it tastes, you're paying attention to who you're eating with, you're paying attention to the things that you're thinking about and talking about, you're socializing, and you're also paying attention to the things that you can do wrong that can screw it up for everybody.
Oh, no. Anytime you challenge yourself, you take a risk you're going to fail at something.
That's right, but life's crooked road teaches you that you can really do a lot of stuff wrong. You can make a lot of mistakes.
You know what? One thing I noticed about this, about your meal, pay attention, pay attention. You know, there's this concept in Buddhism called mindfulness. Many spiritual practices, they Zen, Buddhism, mindfulness. How does that word fit in with what you're just describing?
You're living in the moment of that meal with those people, with the experience of, in this case, we're talking about breakfast. Are you just going to stuff food in your mouth and ignore the person on the other side and think about yourself or think about your problems? Or are you going to explore and reach during this day and try to end your life, in my case, by having as many of these things as we can possibly earn. It's earned, it's not dealt.
So it starts with waking up in the morning and the first meal, and the way you know at the end of the day that you've had your best day ever is that you experience the glow.
When you review what happened that day and you're thankful for all of those good things that happened, the feeling comes.
Well, let's say you're going to have the glow tonight and you had breakfast. Let's say you had some family members or friends there with breakfast. You engaged them in conversation. You were mindful. You enjoyed the meal. You ate good, reasonable food because that's what the body needs. And now you're about to launch off into your day. What's the next factor that might have something to do with having your best day ever and experiencing the glow?
Well, you begin with yourself, and you're going to be engaging with, well, at the beginning, you're going to be engaging with people in your home, with people on your block, and the environment on your block.
Or if you work, I know you're retired now.
If you work, you're going to go to work and you're going to engage with people, and it gets complicated. Things are going to happen, and
it's not paradise out there. Therefore, there are opportunities to have your best day ever.
To have a special day. The worse the hand that got dealt you, the greater the opportunity it is to have your special day. And so if you're in one of those communities where many bad things are happening, where the environment is terrible, where people are at each other's throat, the opportunities to have a special day are just abundant.
You know, sometimes it really pays off to kind of like weigh things together. Here's this notion of having your best day ever. Well, how does it become the worst day ever?
Well, it starts with you. You have control of much of what's going to happen to you during the course of the day.
Or at least how to respond to that.
That's right. You can bring out the best and you can bring out the worst, not only in the people that you deal with, but your environment. You can walk out the door and you can throw some trash down on the ground, and
you can start by having a bad meal, being surly to your family, stepping outside, throwing some trash on the ground, getting in the car and driving like a crazy person.
That's right. To get down and make everybody crazy at work. Or you can you can think about those people that you're going to be associating with.
So you can factor other people into your life.
That's right, and try to bring out the very best in them and yourself, and that's technique. That's a study. That's learning mindfulness. That's learning that your tone and your anger is going to get a response. You can get a good response and you can get a bad response, and it's a continuing piece of work.
Well, I want to mention something. We often see instances, let's say on television or movies, where a person goes out and tries to be nice to everybody, and they get squatted on, or they get deprecated because, oh, that's just some kind of new age fashion that's coming into it. I don't really get a sense that that's what you're talking about here. I get a sense what you're talking about here is something that's subtler and quieter and is less obvious in the way you conduct yourself, rather than making a show out of trying to be nice to everybody. Would that make sense to you?
Well, you want to bring out the best in everybody. That doesn't mean being nice to everybody. That person who's going to take a free ride on your efforts, that person who's going to take advantage of you, that's...
You're not doing them any favors by allowing them to engage in that kind of crap, right?
They're not going to have their best day by using you up.
So I would say that almost sounds a little bit like tough love, doesn't it?
Well, it's you take the hand that got dealt with you. You try to find what is special in them. What do they bring to the table that's special? And if you can find it, and if you can get it, one person at a time, you are building your community at home, your community at work. You do it by looking for the best in that person instead of what your problems are.
So it sounds to me like during the course of the day there are opportunities. And most people's default behavior is just to react to what other people's reactions are. But what you're talking about is something where there's... Go ahead.
Most people's default behavior is what's in it for me.
Transactionalism. What can I get out of this?
What's in it for
And
me?
if I get something, somebody else has to have less.
And
Zero sum.
But if you want gold at the end of the day, you're going to find that you're going to get it by helping some person bring out the best in themselves.
Almost sounds like it's a more subtle form of transactionalism. You're getting something for all the sacrifices, all the discipline you practice during the day, but you're not, I don't get a sense you're really talking about doing it so you can get the glow. The glow is like a signature that's stamped on the end of your day that says you really got in touch with it.
The
Does that make sense?
The glow is when that person, especially a person that is stigmatized by society for whatever reason, they're disabled or they're branded when that person feels like they gave their day the best shot they possibly could, and you participated in that and you helped that person do that, that's when you get gold. That's when it comes in abundance. That's what you're looking for, and you can't buy it.
Over the course of the day, you're going to have certain opportunities that are going to give you the chance to demonstrate many of these virtues and qualities we've talked about already. And we're getting a sense of what this means, but are there any ideas we need to have in mind in order to have our best day ever?
Well, the first two words that come to mind are bettering and inclusivity. And by bettering, I mean you've got a hand that's dealt to you.
Taking the circumstances as they're presented.
And you take it and try to improve, make each thing better, each relationship with each person better, your environment in your home, and especially your block. Just just focusing on what's right there and to try to help bring out the best in everybody. And the inclusivity means everyone. You don't just try to grab the best and the brightest and
The
hope-
elite.
Yeah, and take off and make the world a better place. With that, the way you make the world a better place is to be inclusive, is to take that person that really has it tough for whatever reason. Take a person with Down syndrome or something like that.
Even learning to tie your shoes.
That, yeah,
It could be a tremendous breakthrough for a
that,
veteran.
that really has to struggle through their day because they're just stigmatized. And they're so grateful as when they go home, feeling like you want to have, when they go home
Accomplishment.
and they're going to feel glow, I can tell you, you're going to feel double glow. So that's the first part, is those two words, bettering and inclusivity. Then there's one other thing, and that's also at the end of the day, on those days when you blew it.
How many days do you feel at the end of the day you feel like you have achieved this glow? How often does that occur?
How often does what occur?
Yeah, every other day, once a week. How often do you feel the glow when you turn it at night?
You know, it ebbs and flows.
Okay.
And it ebbs and flows. I tell you, you've heard the word thin-skinned,
Mm-hmm.
old people.
Oh, right.
Well,
Grouches,
and to have
etc.
patience with kids, it gets tough.
You've definitely challenged
I-
yourself.
I lose it, man, and I get so angry at myself because I'm the adult, they're the kid, but I lose it.
These are the kids that Taylor works with in the garden.
Yeah,
And then he takes to the farmer's market to sell the produce on Sundays.
yeah. So just a shortcut through all of this stuff. You've heard of the 7 deadly sins.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about that. I was going to say, let's say 3 days out of 7 in a week you feel the glow. There's those 4 days when it didn't happen. Why, in your estimation?
Well,
does
in
it
every
matter?
case, it's violating one of those 7 deadly sins.
On one degree or another.
What?
To one
de-
degree or another.
To one degree or another. And greed is number one.
So which basically says about money. If you're pursuing a life for wealth and money, that's greed, and forget it, you're pretty much precluded having your best day ever.
Yeah, just focused only on yourself. You've blown it up right at
Yeah, it's going to be tough to overcome that one.
Yeah, and gluttony. You start stuffing stuff in your mouth and not paying attention to what it is, you're going to kill
Oh my
yourself.
God, there's no better feeling in your life when you've had a meal and an hour and a half later, you're right at the point where you're not hungry, and at the same time, your body is finished digesting, you feel the glow.
Well-
I know that.
Well,
So gluttony's not a good idea.
yeah, the avarice.
Avarice is basically wanting more of something you already have enough of, I believe.
Well, and anger. That's the one that.
I think you mentioned that with the children.
Yeah,
That comes
well,
out easily.
Well, people thought of those 7 deadly sins a long time
I'm
ago.
sure it was very philosophical with it.
They were right
thought
on
it
the money
through.
then,
Yeah.
and I can tell you they're right on the money
Well,
now.
there's another one called covetousness, and that basically
Yeah.
says, look, I'm not happy with what I got, I want what this guy's got. And obviously, you're not gonna have your best day ever if you're out there trying to get what somebody else has got, unless, of course, they have the glow, and you decide, that's the kind of thing I would like to have in my life. And that would implicate being much more inclusive and service-oriented about the way you live your life. But go ahead. I can't remember any more of the.
Well, we don't need any more, just don't blow it.
Don't blow it.
All right, that's it.
Don't blow it. So, okay, so that we've pretty much talked about what having your best day ever is. And in a word, I think you said, there was 2 words that were really key to this. What were those?
Well, bettering.
Bettering.
Inclusivity.
Okay, so some people who don't practice inclusivity might practice bettering, but that kind of selfishness seems to obviate their ability to experience the glow, because we're social beings. We're interested in the welfare of other people around us.
It's fatal, and you can take, let's take Harvard right now. Harvard has influenced, it's the leading college in the United States. It's influenced education since the day it began, and they're figuring it out after how many years? It's over 100 years.
Well, how old were you when you figured this out?
Well, it's just coming. It's just coming, and they're changing their behavior. They're changing the way they give weight to applicants to come to Harvard, because they know they're influencing, and they've had a horrible influence on the whole country.
So they're starting to be more responsible about the social ramifications of wealth and education, etc.
And beginning in January of 2016, they came with a report where they're going to try to give greater weight to people who were concerned about their community and their family, and they did things like that, as opposed to focusing on themselves and turning themselves into wizards, money-making machines.
Now here's something I have in mind is, let's imagine a person has inclusivity, but they don't have the concept of bettering. What does that do to their lives?
Well,
I mean, I can imagine a certain kind of person who's so compassionate about all the suffering in the world that it practically destroys their capacity for experiencing a glow, because they're not actually doing anything about the circumstances.
Well,
I think that's where I'm probing with that question.
yeah, you're going to reach a state of
Compassion
feeling used up.
Yeah.
Very, very fast, that you're going to be used and abused and
Taken
depressed
of.
and
Ineffectual. Watchers out there are thinking, boy, is this guy idealistic, pie in the sky, it's all fluff, it's not real. How would you respond to someone who has those characterizations?
They're not listening, they're not looking. You use the word fluff, which is a pretty good word. They're missing that part of your life, the human existence, that does not relate to money. Money came a long time after we did, and they're looking solely at money, and if you're paying attention, they're destroying our environment, we're destroying each other, and they're just missing the boat. You have to start someplace. You have to pay attention. You have to start with yourself, with your own environment, with your own community. And for those people who got dealt the worst hand in life, they're the ones that have
the greatest opportunity. I get that.
To step up to bat, and at the end of the day, just feel great. And it's happening.
So
it's happening with us in this community and in our garden. And
so the goal of bettering is not to experience the glow, is what I get. The goal of bettering is to improve the quality of your own life and the lives of all around you, as well as the natural world, which would lead to some kind of fundamental change in the direction of our society on a macro level, but as a result of all the small individual changes that are made by
If there's one word to describe our society right now, it's change. Things are changing, and they're changing fast. And
Change is a kind of a neutral word.
On one side of it, it's looking very, very bleak.
That's the worsening
and
aspect.
that's the word, and it leads to absolute misery. And for all of those folks who are focused solely on money, and that is their purpose in life, and they're the ones calling the shots right now. The one thing that you know at the end of the day is that they're adding misery on top of misery on top of misery, and it's going to implode.
However,
I don't know how fast it's going to implode, but I know that.
the funny part about this is we know that it gets easier and easier to better and better as things get worse and worse. At some point, this pie in the sky concept you're talking about here is going to become so compelling that people are going to say, you know, it's gotten really bad, something has to change, and it needs to start with me, because otherwise I can't count on anybody else changing it, because our presidents don't change it, our senators don't change it, our congressmen don't change it, our states don't change it, corporations don't change it. People change everything. And if this idea of embracing the process of bettering, leading to a daily review with a glow, makes a lot of sense to me, Taylor.
Well, the flip side
is more and more opportunity.
The flip side is coming at you so fast. I think everybody's going to wake up. I think we're hitting bottom with a pretty hard bounce.
Well, you know, the only thing that gets me is how bad does it have to get before we get better? That's really what it is. Are we going to hit bottom now, or are we going to hit bottom 5 years from now when it's even worse?
I think there are people all over the world that are coming with ideas, and that all are recognizing that focusing on money and only money as your purpose in life is disaster. And there's got to be a better way, and they're experimenting with different better ways all over everywhere.
And so, regardless of whether or not somebody has the concept of best day ever or bettering or anything else, the reality is people know intrinsically within themselves what you're talking about and what we're talking about here. They just have their own way of understanding it. Well, I want to remind you folks, this is Taylor Moore. He was a practicing attorney for decades, very successful attorney in his time. And now that he's looking back on life, he is basically seeing things that have always been true. It's just that now he has the opportunity to do it. But you know what? You don't have to wait till you're how old, Taylor?
I'm 85.
To have your best day.
When I get off of this mountain.